The DNC finally releasing the long-awaited autopsy report detailing what went wrong for the Democrats in the 2024 election. The blame largely went on the Biden White House for not properly setting up Kamala Harris as Joe Biden's predecessor, writing, quote, this: had the White House explored and evaluated ways to leverage Kamala Harris earlier in the administration, perhaps it would have improved the president's standing, and it certainly could have helped prepare her to lead the ticket. Report charges there just wasn't the support there for Harris from Biden loyalists, even going as far as blaming President Trump for her unpopularity. Here's what they write. The Harris campaign appears to have relied on Trump being unacceptable rather than building an affirmative case for Harris. But notably missing from this report, and there were a lot of things missing, any mention of Joe Biden's cognitive decline, the choice of Tim Walz as Harris's running mate, or Democrats turning against Israel following the October 7th massacre. DNC Chair Kevin Martin is now disavowing this document. He said in a statement, "I'm not proud of it. It does not meet my standards. It won't meet your standards. I don't endorse what's in this report or what's left out of it. I could not, in good faith, put the DNC stamp of approval on it." I want to bring in KA Consulting President and Fox News contributor Kellyanne Conway. Kellyanne, what is your reaction to this, quote, autopsy from the DNC?
Well, remember, Cheryl, thanks so much for having me this morning. Remember, autopsies are done on dead people and dead things. And I think the DNC is admitting that they are a party way out of touch and out of sync with what average Americans say is rankling them, is vexing and perplexing them. I didn't see much about that. I think the Democrats are trying to expand their playbook, but not expand their electorate. And look, I was very critical of my Republican Party. They came out with an autopsy in March of 2013. It had some good points in it, like, hey, we need to get up with digitization and raising money online and reaching people through a ground game where they live and the way they're communicating, even then 13 years ago, Cheryl, more online. And in fact, they did that. But the Republican Party also said they needed comprehensive immigration reform. They needed amnesty. That's why Mitt Romney had lost Hispanics to Obama. No, it wasn't. Here comes Donald Trump 2 short years later. He runs an illegal immigration and trade, saying it's unfair to the workers. He transforms the party into workers. I don't see the Democrats looking in the mirror and saying we had candidates that were out of touch, we were obsessed with Donald Trump, and we've lost touch with the workers in Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Ohio, North Carolina, Florida, these states that frankly President Obama carried. He carried Ohio, Iowa, Florida, Wisconsin, Michigan, all twice, and you turn around and you've had 2 female candidates, Hillary Clinton and Kamala Harris, lose those states to no other than Donald Trump. Look, we all make mistakes. We all have to assess those and not repeat those mistakes. I think this autopsy reveals a Democratic Party fighting with itself over its identity and who its future is. Its future this November includes people like Graham Plattner and his Nazi tattoo of 20 years. We found out what he does in a porta potty. It's disgusting. We found out the way he thought about that soldier. He said he didn't, quote, deserve to live. He made fun of him as fat and lazy. Who speaks this way other than a Nepo baby out of touch with the people of Maine? They've got this crazy guy running against Andy Barr for Senate for Mitch McConnell's seat in Kentucky. He's the Mondami of Kentucky. They've got Abdul al-Sayed ahead in the polls in Michigan. This is the future of the Democratic Party. If you don't believe me, see who they're putting up to represent their ideas.
Well, Kellyanne, you know, we've heard from some of these Democrats in the wake of this autopsy. Listen to how they're characterizing it. I want to get your reaction on the other side.
I think it's pretty unbelievable that Gaza would not be mentioned once in the autopsy report.
I mean, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to know that Gaza was one of the big issues in the 2024 election.
I don't really care. I mean, I'm not sure those are the right people to diagnose what went wrong with the election. A lot of it was unavoidable. So this story hasn't interested me for a long time.
Kellyanne, he says he doesn't care. Maybe they should, considering that President Trump won every swing state, every battleground state in the 2024 election. It was a wipeout. And now here comes the midterms in November.
Yes, and the majority of the popular vote, which is not likely for Republican candidates, nominees. That was the first time in many years. Look, Chris Murphy, the last senator that you showed in that clip, he doesn't care. He cares a lot about his Trump derangement syndrome, for which there apparently is no therapeutic cure or vaccine. He served with Kamala Harris, and then he defended and covered for a feeble president. I call the autopsy in 5 words. It should just say, here's why we lost. a mummy and a dummy. That's who they had as president and vice president. It's that simple. How many Democratic candidates are going to ask Kamala Harris to show up and campaign with them? How many are asking Joe Biden to do that? The party's trying to move on, but they're moving in a leftward direction. They've abandoned the working class. They are no pro-lifers, pro-Second Amendment, pro-tax cut, pro-dereg, pro-energy independence, let alone dominance. Democrats to speak of. There's John Fetterman. He votes with the Republicans many times. And look what's happening today. President Trump at 11 a.m. will swear in the new Fed chair, Kevin Warsh. He's talking about the dual mandate. He's talking about keeping inflation low, but also financial stability, but also maximum employment. I like what he's saying about the balance sheet. I like the way he's embracing technology and AI, saying that has to be part of what we consider at the Fed. Things are changing quick technologically. He's saying let's get rid of stuff like these, considering all these government bonds and mortgage-backed securities. He's laid bare what his vision is, and then the president will get on the Air Force One and fly to Rockland County, New York to campaign with Mike Lawler. Who's he? He's one of the 3 Republican members of Congress, Cheryl, who won in a Kamala Harris district. So President Trump's going to be out there putting in the shoe leather, showing up, putting up, standing up, and speaking up for these candidates. And the Democrats are still wondering. 107 days was Kamala Harris's book, because that's how much time she had to run for president, 107 days. But she had over 1,000 days to be the vice president. She was an unremarkable, uninspiring vice president, hardly showed up to work. Go look at her public schedule. It had very little on it, particularly on the weekends. And yet the autopsy took 562 days for them to release it, and they still can't agree on what's bothering the Democratic Party.
There you go. Hey, I want to move on to this because President Trump's political power full display this week. Trump-backed primary candidates dominated the voting booths. We saw this in Texas, Kentucky, Alabama, other states. Kellyanne, many lawmakers have come on the program. They've told Maria they're feeling a lot more positive about the Republicans' chances to hold the House in November. I want to get your midterm outlook. You've mentioned some of these races and some of these, let's just frankly say, these more controversial candidates, progressive candidates on the left. At the same time, Texas was a big story this week because the president came out. He endorsed Ken Paxton to take that seat over John Cornyn, the incumbent. Now, if we do have, say, Ken Paxton versus the Tallarico race going on, the primary is next week. We don't know, but that could be, I think, a safe assumption. What is your outlook for Texas, the money the party has to spend on this race and has been spending, and then any other general thoughts you can give us?
Sure, Cheryl. One thing that's going on that doesn't get enough coverage is all the retirements. We have 11 U.S. senators retiring this year. One, Tommy Tuberville's running for governor, but 6 Republicans and 4 Democrats are leaving the Senate. This is higher than it has been in the past midterms recently. In the House, 57 House members are retiring, pretty much split between the two parties, but again, higher than it's been. So I think retirements are a piece of this that we haven't considered, since voters like to say, I want to throw them all out. I want fresh blood and new faces, but they usually vote for the incumbents. But in Texas, President Trump did what he does constantly. He gave both candidates a lot of space and grace to make their case to the Texas voters. He stayed out of the Paxton versus Cornyn primary for a very long time, let them have that initial shot at each other, and then I think Cornyn has not done well in the polls since then. But and the president's doing what we must do. The media and other Democrats are going to want everybody to focus on the Republican side. This guy, James Tallarico, is trying to dress himself up as a moderate, a reasonable centrist guy. The guy is as radical and liberal as the rest of the party is becoming. He said God is non-binary. He said there are 6 genders. Look, I've heard for, 25 years that Democrats are going to turn Texas blue. They're not going to do it this year either. Yeah. The Republicans, President Trump and his team have the money, the message, and the mechanics, and the main messenger, President Trump, and his endorsements. 37 for 37 this week. You can't argue with his record.
Oh, Kellyanne Conway.
Endorsements.
Thank you so much for being here. It's always great to get your perspective, Kellyanne Conway. Thank you.